The African nation has announced a significant policy shift concerning its gold sector. Ghana has given all foreign companies until the 30th of April to exit its small-scale gold market.
Ghana just did the unthinkable. It gave every foreign gold trader a deadline to leave or be forced out. No deals, no warnings, just a hard stop. April 30th, 2025. But why would a peaceful West African nation suddenly risk billions in foreign investment? What treasure has Ghana found that it won't let foreign gold traders lay their hands on? Let's find out. It began with whispers. A few words tucked inside government briefings, barely noticed by the international press. But then the president of Ghana stepped up to the podium, looked the world in the eye, and announced something no one thought possible. A deadline. A fixed, non-negotiable date. April 30th, 2025. That's the day Ghana draws the curtain on decades of foreign dominance in its local gold market. After that date, no foreign national, no foreign company, no outsider will be allowed to buy gold directly from Ghana's artisanal and small-scale miners. Not in the markets, not in the bush, not through backdoor brokers. Not anymore. The room was silent when he said it. But behind that silence, across trading rooms in London and Shanghai, in diplomatic halls from Brussels to Beijing, a quiet shock rippled. Because this wasn't just a regulation. This was resistance. For years, the small-scale mining industry in Ghana, the one that produces nearly half of the country's gold, has operated like an open-air market with no walls. Foreign buyers came with cash, trucks, and influence. They made themselves indispensable to miners who barely earned enough to survive. And without asking for permission, they built an empire in the shadows, an empire held together not by law but by loopholes. But now, the door is being slammed shut. The deadline came without the usual pageantry. No white papers, no multi-year phase-outs, just a line drawn in gold dust. Foreign traders can apply to buy gold from Ghana, yes, but only through a newly established state institution called Gold Bod. No more side deals, no more unregistered purchases. If you want Ghana's gold, you'll get it on Ghana's terms. It was a shock to many, but for those paying attention, the signs had been there for years. Rural mining towns had become mini foreign colonies, complete with foreign bosses, foreign machines, and sometimes even foreign security guards. Miners were working Ghanaian soil but answering to instructions in Mandarin or Arabic. And while gold flowed out by the ton, taxes barely trickled in. For a country sitting on one of Africa's richest mineral deposits, that was more than embarrassing. It was infuriating. And for President Mahama, it was personal. Sources close to the administration say the tipping point came not from a single event, but from a pattern of disrespect. Unregistered foreign traders are bribing their way into protected zones. Gold shipments are vanishing from the airport manifests. Smugglers slipped through customs while schools in gold-rich regions had no books, no toilets, and no future. To make matters worse, the government had been pressured for years to avoid upsetting investors. But that phrase, upsetting investors, began to sound a lot like keeping the country weak on purpose. So when the deadline was announced, it was more than a policy. It was a message. We are not your resource farm. We are not your playground. This is our gold. And the world noticed. Within days, rumors began swirling through Ghana's gold towns. Foreign buyers, some of whom had operated in the country for over a decade, began liquidating assets. Others tried to pivot, offering to partner with local firms, to set up training centers, to donate to community projects. But the government wasn't interested in charity. It wanted change. Real, enforceable, structural change. The deadline didn't just aim to clean up the system. It aimed to end a dependency that had made Ghana's gold market vulnerable to manipulation. Too long had foreign traders dictated prices, bypassed export declarations, and funneled profits offshore. Too long had Ghana played host while others hosted the profits. But here's what made it bold. Ghana didn't cancel trade. It rewired it. The foreign traders aren't being banned from gold entirely. They're being redirected through Gold Bod, a centralized regulator designed to serve as both gatekeeper and protector. Any gold purchased from small-scale miners must now be declared, priced, and taxed with full transparency and traceability. To many outsiders, it looks like Ghana is tightening the screws. But to Ghanaians, especially the small-scale miners who have been exploited for generations, it feels like something rare is happening. A government choosing its people over its profits. Of course, the deadline carries risks. International backlash is already brewing. Some embassies have reportedly requested clarity. Others are drafting quiet warnings about investor confidence. But Ghana isn't flinching. Because this isn't about optics anymore. It's about rewriting a system that was never built for the country's benefit in the first place. But here is a thing to notice. You can't set a deadline like April 30th unless something is deeply broken. And in Ghana's gold industry, it wasn't just broken, it was bleeding. Every year, without fail, billions of dollars worth of gold vanished into thin air. Not a clerical error, not a market dip, just gone off the books out of the country and into private hands. The official figure? $2.3 billion in losses annually. Quiet losses, illegal losses. Untraceable, but not invisible. Because the signs were everywhere, if you knew where to look. Unusually large shipments departing from obscure airports. Miners are complaining about being paid far below market value. Export records that didn't match what local dealers were collecting. And most damning of all, a national treasury that remained starved of gold revenue, even as Ghana's mines were producing at near-record levels. To understand how that kind of money slips away, you have to understand how the shadow economy of gold works. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. It starts in the mines, not the deep high-tech corporate mines owned by multinationals, but the smaller, rougher ones dotting the countryside. These are often just a handful of men, some tools, and a pit. Sometimes legal, often not, but always desperate to sell. That's where the foreign buyers come in. Not through official trade deals or embassies, but through pickup trucks and cash-filled envelopes. They don't show up in suits. They operate from lodges and compounds in rural towns, far from the eyes of the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources. They speak the local languages. They carry wads of foreign currency. And they always pay fast, often more than local dealers can afford, but always below the global price. It's a hustle, plain and simple. The miner gets paid just enough to feed his family. The buyer gets the gold, and the state gets nothing. From there, the gold moves, sometimes across borders by road, hidden in car batteries or oil drums, sometimes on private flights with falsified manifests, and in some cases straight into cargo bound for Dubai, Hong Kong, or Istanbul, where documentation is easier to bend and customs officers are well rewarded to look the other way. These are not random smugglers operating on a whim. They are networks, coordinated, practiced, and profitable. And many are backed by foreign commercial interests who know exactly how to exploit Ghana's loopholes. Reports from investigative journalists and watchdog groups have traced some of these networks back to Chinese-linked syndicates, Middle Eastern buyers, and even shadow partners within Ghana itself, including local officials who receive kickbacks in exchange for silence. But it's not just about the gold. It's about what that $2.3 billion could have meant. That money could have repaired collapsing school buildings in gold-producing regions like Wassa Amenfi. It could have paid for mobile clinics in rural Ashanti. It could have built water treatment plants for the villages whose rivers were poisoned by unregulated mining. Instead, it built vacation homes in Dubai, funded bank accounts in Hong Kong, and disappeared into the global black market. The absurdity of it all is that Ghana didn't need foreign traders to begin with. The country has the manpower, the resources, and the infrastructure to handle its gold, but what it lacked was control, or rather the will to enforce it, until now. The 2.3 billion leak isn't just a statistic. It's the smoking gun that justified the crackdown. It gave Mahama's administration the ammunition it needed to push past international pressure and take radical action. When asked why Ghana was taking such a hard stance, a senior official reportedly replied, "We're not banning trade. We're banning theft." Still, the pushback has already begun. Lobby groups are warning about trade disruptions. Foreign investors are hinting at legal action. And certain countries have quietly suggested that this kind of nationalism could destabilize investor confidence in West Africa. But the numbers don't lie. For every dollar Ghana gains in foreign investment, it's losing 3 in stolen gold. The balance sheet speaks louder than the diplomats. And on the ground, the people know the truth. Ask any miner in the Western region, and they'll tell you stories of foreign traders offering bribes to police officers. of gold vanishing from evidence lockers, of the entire shipments were rerouted before they ever reached Tema port. They're not shocked by the $2.3 billion. They're shocked it took this long for someone to notice. Now, with the foreign traders facing eviction and Goldbod preparing to assume full control of the sector, the era of quiet looting may finally be ending. But ending the theft is only step one, because the damage isn't just economic, it's also environmental. And while money can be recovered, poison rivers don't heal as easily. Now the question is, what is going to be the impact of this on Ghana? Change on paper means nothing unless it moves people. And now that Ghana has drawn its line, built its weapon, and restructured the rules of gold, the question is no longer what was done, but what it will do. Because the shockwaves from this decision won't just hit foreign traders or smugglers, they'll roll through the villages, the ministries, the markets, and through the homes of everyday Ghanaians. The most immediate impact will be revenue reclamation. With Goldbod capturing what used to leak into the black market, Ghana's government stands to recover billions in lost earnings. That's not just money on paper. That's revenue that can finally be taxed, budgeted, and reinvested. Ministries won't have to beg donors for clean water programs in mining communities. District health centers won't have to wait 3 years for oxygen machines. The missing piece was never capacity. It was the capital, and capital is now coming home. But money alone doesn't change a country. How it's used will define the real outcome. One of the biggest promises of this reform is to redirect gold profits toward the very regions that were exploited most, places like Upper Denkira, Prestea, and Bibiani. For decades, these areas watched billions in gold flow out while their roads turned to mud and their schools collapsed from neglect. This policy shift could finally rewrite that narrative by ensuring that royalties and development funds return to the source, not just the capital. In fact, under Ghana's new mineral revenue framework, districts with active mining activity are entitled to a direct share of mineral royalties, a mechanism that's been neglected for years. But now, with proper gold tracking through Goldbod, those payments can't be fudged, avoided, or delayed. For once, the accounting will be public, the numbers traceable, and the people watching. And that shift isn't just economic, it's psychological. Because for years, gold miners, especially small-scale artisanal workers, were treated as disposable labor. They were viewed as unregulated, untamable, and unimportant. But the truth is, these miners form the backbone of a sector that contributes over a third of Ghana's total gold output. By making them central to the country's economic planning, by recognizing their value, the government is elevating their status, not just their wages. That change matters. It means these miners will no longer be forced to sell their product in secrecy, for scraps, or to buyers who don't speak their language and don't care about their safety. With standardized pricing, official protection, and legal selling channels, their work becomes respected, not criminalized. It becomes a career, not a survival tactic. This also unlocks long overdue opportunities for the local industry. With foreign buyers removed, Ghanaian firms now have space to enter the gold value chain, from refining to export logistics to jewelry production. It's not just about digging anymore, it's about building. An entire ecosystem of jobs, skills, and enterprises could emerge if the state backs it properly. But perhaps the most overlooked impact is political. This reform could radically shift the power dynamic between the Ghanaian state and its citizens. For too long, the narrative was, the gold is here, but the power is elsewhere. Now that equation is changing. When people see that their government is willing to challenge powerful outsiders to protect national resources, trust can grow, not just in the institution of Goldbod, but in the broader idea that sovereignty can be real, not symbolic. And let's not ignore the message this sends to Ghana's youth. In a country where unemployment and disillusionment are high, this is a rare moment of boldness, proof that leadership can act in the national interest, not just in the interest of foreign investors or donor countries. For a generation raised on broken promises, this reform isn't just policy, it's precedent. It says, you don't have to give away your future to survive in the present. Of course, none of this is guaranteed. Implementation will be everything. If corruption seeps into Goldbod, if bureaucracy strangles efficiency, if elites redirect the profits back to themselves, then the opportunity will rot like so many others before it. But if it works, if the money flows, the miners rise, the villages thrive, then this decision won't just impact Ghana, it will define it. Remember one thing: Ghana may have lit the match, but it's not the only one playing with fire. Across West Africa, a quiet rebellion is taking shape. Not with coups or speeches, but with policy. With the law. With bold decisions that signal a deeper shift, Africa is tired of waiting for permission to own what's already theirs. What Ghana just did with gold, others are already doing with oil, uranium, cotton, and even transit routes. The continent is waking up to a painful truth. It was never poor, just poorly managed. Take Burkina Faso, for example. Once labeled a forgotten state in the Sahel, it's now rewriting its entire financial system under Captain Ibrahim Traore. Gold, once flowing into French vaults and private Dubai accounts, is now being refined on home soil. Traore didn't just kick out the French military, he kicked out the middlemen, his state-owned refinery, his central buying authority, his rejection of IMF prescriptions. They all point to one thing: Africa is reclaiming the steering wheel. In Mali, the shift is equally unapologetic. The government tore up military cooperation deals with the West and banned certain NGOs accused of meddling in national affairs. But underneath the politics lies something more important: economic sovereignty. Mali is exploring new gold agreements with Russia and China, not just because of politics, but because those partnerships don't come with colonial baggage or veiled threats. And then there's Niger, where uranium has powered Europe's lights for decades while millions at home live in darkness. Now, with ECOWAS tensions, diplomatic reshuffling, and a newly assertive leadership, Niger is finally questioning who benefits from its radioactive wealth. The answer? Not Nigerians. This isn't just a coincidence. This is a pattern. And Ghana's gold reform fits right into it. Because what Mahama did wasn't just about fixing a broken industry. It was about taking a stand other leaders are now watching closely. If Ghana can kick out foreign gold traders and still survive economically, it sets a dangerous precedent for those who've built their fortunes on African dependency. For decades, African economies were trapped in dependency cycles. Borrow from the West, extract for the West, export to the West, and in return, debt, weak institutions, broken infrastructure. Now, a new playbook is emerging. One where African governments dictate the terms of trade. One where raw materials are processed locally. One where value stays closer to the mine, the field, the port. And at the center of that playbook, moves like Ghana's gold reform. Do you think the time has come when Africa changes forever? What will happen if the whole of Africa does the same? Let us know in the comment section. Will the external forces do something about it? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.